Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's expert webinar titled Cloud Security Understand in 1 Hour. I'm Satyakshi from Spring People. We are India's largest enterprise training provider. I will be your moderator for today's session. In today's webinar, we have cloud expert Ishad Bhatt, who will throw light on cloud security, common threats such as data breaches, service traffic hijacking, DOS attacks, to name a few, and will deep dive into measures, controls, and precautions in cloud security. If you have any questions during the session, please type it in the chat box and they will be addressed by Yashad after the presentation is over. So without further ado, let's start today's session. Over to you, Yashad.
Thank you, Satakshi. Thank you, Rohan. So today the topic is cloud security. So here I'll not be specific to any particular cloud provider because every cloud provider having their own security schemes, regimes. So let's move forward. So what we are seeing in this course, we will be covering what is cloud computing, security planning, understanding the data security, threats to the cloud security, any particular model, insider threats in the cloud, CSA, Cloud Security Alliance model, and what are the measures and controls we should have in cloud security, and what should be the precautions we should take during the planning of cloud to be secure. So now, first question for a newcomer who doesn't have much information about cloud is what is cloud? So let me brief about myself now. I'm a cloud consultant having around 10 years of hands-on experience, consultant in ML AI projects in software firms, and I'm a speaker at both international and domestic events. So what is cloud computing? So what is cloud? Cloud computing is a use or combination of hardware and software. So if I'm saying that it's a combination of hardware and software to deliver a service over a network, just like internet, then that's what cloud is. So for beginners who are very new to cloud, I can say cloud computing, is a delivery of computing services, including various things like servers, storage, databases, networking, softwares, analytics, like application insights, and intelligence. Many intelligence components like say AI, artificial intelligence based Visio and others perspective over the internet. So this all combines to offer for any company, any organization, any entity to offer faster innovation, economy of scale, and flexible resources. Right. So why we need cloud? It's very easy to set up your environment in a rapid manner to drive your business priorities. If there is a lot of traffic you are expecting during some peak time, so it has auto scaling features. All the cloud providers are having nowadays. They are giving it increase daily activities, efficiency, and the reduced cost. So if you see, I have added 3 box here. Number 1 is speed, scale, and economics. So next, what I put it, less worries. Less worries means you should take care of your functionality, what that software needs to do, instead of taking care of servers, taking care of multiple machines on your segment wherever you are installing multiple regions, areas. So don't concentrate on that thing. Basically, we should focus on the software's functionality. What our cloud is take care of about the resource management, whatever the type of resource you are using, whether it is a application gateway, whether it's a virtual machines, any resource, or nowadays AI Visio. So resource management, let's take care of by these cloud providers. Security. do not think much about security, although we have to think security in our perspective, which we'll be discussing in this session. Don't think about creating environments on different physical machines. It will provide you staging, production, whatever the number of perf1, perf2, performance environment, load testing environment, this all it will take care of. High availability. So available SLA, if you see in combined SLA is around 99.3 plus. Scalability, load balancing, fault tolerance, OS installation, no need to take care of, or you should have a person basically who will be installing something on your machine. So that redundant work, this cloud provider, any cloud provider will do. Installation, licensing, updates, regular updates are there, regular patches are there, no need to take care about that. Network, it's always up, whatever the type of networking schemes you want to use, virtual net or whatever, it will take care of. And maintenance, this particular guy, maintenance, it is costing a lot for every organization. So these are basically when I'm saying less worries. So firms should not more focused on this one. You should focus on, but not that where you are basically increasing your scale or cost. Now, what are the benefits? Instant scalability, anywhere accessibility, increased speed and operational agility, reduced expenditure, automatic updates, as I discussed, disaster recovery. In case if your service is going down against a particular node, that means a particular machine, another node will automatically will come up. High security, they are having their own schemes. Every other, like GCP, Azure, AWS, VMware, they're having their own security schemes on their side, means on the provider side. Now, next one, reduce carbon footprint. When I'm saying reduce carbon footprint means we are not having virtual machines on, or we're not having machines who are basically increase, that heat and all. So that's why I have included that point as well. And flexibility. So they're having a concept called pay as you go, which means whatever the resource we are using, according to that only. Means if I'm using say morning 10 to 5, 10 servers, after that I need only 3 servers. So the costing will be on the basis of those, those resources, whatever I have consumed per hour basis. It's not like for full month. Like VMware, they are having VMs on per month basis, mostly. Right? Let's go to next one. These are the service models. This is what many companies were doing: on-premises, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service, SaaS. In case of on-premises, you have to manage it all, from networking, storage, services, virtualization, OS, operating system, middlewares, runtime, data, application. But when you are purchasing this particular guy, IaaS, you should not take care about this servers, storage, networking, virtualization, but you have to install your OS, whatever Linux or what OS you are going for, middlewares, runtime, data, and application. So this is about IaaS. In case of PaaS platform, like SQL, if you are taking SQL service from any provider, you have to take care of only your application and the data. Many applications, many organizations I have seen using, when they are pushing first time their own infrastructure, so they are using lift and shift approach. What they are doing is they are basically only purchasing these machines. Say I need 38 machines in my California region. So what I'll do, I will purchase those 38 machines, 38 VMs in California region specific, and I will install this all application, runtime, data, and all, and OS as well, and middlewares onto those machines parallelly. Similarly, the last one is software as a service, where we are not basically taking care of anything. We are consuming this SaaS service from the cloud provider. Okay, and the beauty of this all solutions is it is basically scalable, pretty much secure as compared to other, means our previous experiences, and it's solely managed by your vendor. Vendor means cloud provider. Right? Let's go to the next slide. So there are three kinds of cloud deployments. Number one, public, private, and hybrid. So I have categorized into three, because depends on the concept by which your organization is going to consume the cloud technology in their perspective. Public cloud. It's very economical. Service provider bears all the expenses of bandwidth, infrastructure. Limited configurations are there. Means you cannot impose your own defined configurations on this public cloud if you are purchasing it, right? And cost is, as I told, cost is determined by usage capacity, pay as you go, right? But it is not stable for organizations, operating with sensitive information, like say SDFC Bank. So SDFC Bank, they should not think about public cloud, basically not, because their data, if you see whether it is login information, cost, price of their services, or anyone's account number, these all are the private information, very sensitive. So we should not go for public cloud in that case. So in that case, we should go to private. In public cloud, whenever you are basically opting as a creating a global APIs, go with public cloud. Not a big deal. We can go with that. But to banking applications, we should go to private cloud. So used by large organizations to build and manage their own data centers for specific businesses and IT needs operations. Like say Oracle, they are using their own private cloud. Right? They are having their data centers according to their need. But if it is a public cloud, say I want to expose my services in Japan region, or I should say AP region, and East US region. So in that case, I have to go with public cloud if data is not sensitive in nature. Now, what does it do? It provides you more control over customizability, scalability, and flexibility. Customizable data, what the way you want to have, it's solely your component, and the way you can customize it. If you want to scalable, if you want to provide your own algorithm for scalability, you can do that. Similarly, flexibility. Built on premises. So basically, built on premises means Oracle has developed their own private data center for them. So that premises, it doesn't mean that provided by Azure. No, they have developed on their own premises. Right. Last point is large and medium scale financial enterprises. I give the examples of HDFC Bank or government agencies. Let's say income tax portal. If you see income tax portal, most of the information, I should say 70 to 80% information, are private in nature. We should not use a public cloud. We should go with private. Now, what if it's a question like, what if I want some of the data to be on public, some of the data to be on private? I have a mixing of both. Mixing in the sense, I have some data which is not sensitive in nature. It can be public, say blog or something, and some data which is basically I want to store account information and other in private. So what to do? Answer is here, hybrid cloud. What does it do? It's a combination of both private and public cloud. It provides more flexibility to your business while having control over critical operations, assets, etc. But if it is coupled with private and public nature, it provides some improved flexibility, moreover cost, right? So people are trying to cut down their resources, cost, number of hours. So if you see these all three, four parameters, this is the best one. It takes the advantage of public cloud, as I said, and whenever it is necessary, we can manage the workload. For instance, suppose if you are having a say high volume application, say email you can push it to public cloud because it incurs a cost, huge cost. And we can utilize a private cloud, as I said before, for sensitive assets like the financials, data, recovery, and during scheduled maintenance. Now, cloud computing architecture. This next three slides, guys, I will take it a little fast because we have to move to security. So cloud architecture, basically, it's a game-changing technology, right? So infinite shared resource services infrastructure is not a limiting factor. Like if I want to think about 10 years back, when you are having a a customer segment between say May month to June month. May to say for if you are having a running any academic website, then June, July, August, September. So these 4 months are very critical, and you have to manage your peak load. In that case, what to do? You are basically what we used to do. We used to do a set of hardware infrastructure we have to install. There are many people who are doing installations and another perspective. But with respect to cloud, whether it is a month of June or Jan, we have it will automatically manage the load requirement, the scalability perspective, whether it is horizontal with respect to number of nodes or vertical with respect to number of if you are changing the systems parameters. Elasticity, elasticity means it's available anytime, anywhere, whenever you want. Efficient scalability, high availability because of very high SLA. It starts from 99.3 to 99.7. Pricing models, as I said before, pay as you go means pay for what you use, and less worries about the foundation, about the infrastructure. You should worry, you should focus, you should concentrate on better application quality in bold. High scale, high availability, high maintainability. Uh, it enables very cloud scale applications in a much faster way, or in a much less effort you have to give. Any non-functional requirement or cross-cutting concerns now out of the box, they are basically answered by our providers. It enables elasticity and theoretically in less scale. Why I'm saying theoretically? Because see, if I'm saying Microsoft Azure, they are having limit. Every provider is having a limit. We have 1.5 year back in North Carolina region in the US, we required 40 GPU machines. They told that I have 28, 27. So although we can say it's scalability is possible, but there is a limit. That's what I'm saying, theoretically in less scale, right? Surface more concerns. So basically, if I want to consume my application worldwide, it's very easy for me to basically choose a particular geographic options. Geographic options are like multiple regions or area centers. Promotes design for failure. If any node is or VM is going down, another one will go up. Promotes agility, continued integration, deployment. Basically your software development will always be going on because of this agility option. So you are having a DevOps. Many processes are getting integrated. DevOps, Jenkins, Maven, many technologies. You can use and you can provide the agility to your environment and for quicker deployment of your softwares in multiple environments. So guys, these are the reasons, 55 reasons what Azure is providing. So this is in the mid of 2018. So there are two things, data centers. If you see, these all are the data centers. Somewhere here is ours, and this is Africa region. So here somewhere, east, sorry, South India as a data center. They have started here, and there are some regional partners as well, because Microsoft has not fully equipped, or I should not say fully equipped. Microsoft has not provided or has not covered the whole globe. So in that case, they are using the regional partners as well. So these are the 55 reasons worldwide in case of data centers and regional partners. These are some of the cloud service providers: Azure, AWS, GCP, Adobe, VMware, IBM Cloud, Red Hat, Rackspace, SAP, Oracle, Verizon, Salesforce. Right? Now, whatever I have said so far, these are the positive signs of cloud, but there are challenges. So when I think challenges, see, cloud is an emerging cloud technology, right? It's a very emerging technology. It's facing many technological challenges with respect to different aspects of data and information handling and storage. Right? Some of the challenges, what I thought, while preparing this is availability and reliability, security and privacy, interoperability, performance. If I'm looking for ideal or 100% performance, then I have to consider a lot of options. Portability. If I'm using a particular software, say Node.js or something, and while using a particular system with node with a particular node, means virtual machine, with that compatibility. Sometimes I found this thing also as a problem. So I have to raise my ticket to Microsoft, and then they are providing me solutions. So these are some of the challenges, high level I have mentioned: performance, portability, interoperability, availability and reliability, security and privacy. Security and privacy we will be discussing in this session. So guys, what is cloud security? Uh, let me give you some background. If you see cloud computing, it's integrating with multiple services, multiple providers, queues, logic apps. In logic apps, different providers are there. So it's integrating day by day as it has been implemented in most of the companies. Then security requirement is also getting increased, right? So cloud security means of the set of control based technologies uh, which designed to maintain the security and protect the information, data security, and all the applications associated with it, right? So whatever the application we are using, we have to make sure that the data, access, authorization, authentication should be secure. There should not be any backdoor entry from the outside world, right? So getting the security process, it also includes the data backup, business continuity. Business should continue irrespective of any failure happened from the provider side, right? So that the data can retrieve when if any disaster takes place. Suppose I have let's take 10 years back model. I had a my server center in Bangalore and Delhi, right? Something happened in Delhi. In that case, my data center, whole data center is gone. So who will be responsible for that? So any disastrous activity happening, if it is, then this this is the beauty of the cloud providers schemes, security schemes, that it will automatically take care of your data, the backup, right? So in short, cloud computing process addresses the security control which provided by the cloud provider to maintain the data and its privacy. Let's go to the next slide. So before going for cloud technology, we need to analyze with the several aspects, right? Understand the data storage and the transfer mechanism provided by the cloud service provider like say Azure or GCP or AWS, right? And these models, they requires customer to be responsible for security at various level of services. Means if you are using say for 3 or 4 interfaces to get the data, right? So each interface should be secure enough. It is not only provider's responsibility. Provider will be responsible for their end, but because, as we are developing it, we have to give some of the security features enabled, some of the security features developed from our side, which we can impose on the provider security as well, which makes my application more secure, right? What are the risks? So risk with cloud computing, I can say there are many. There are 5, 6 risks which we have to consider. Like number one is identification and allowance, management interface vulnerabilities, security incidents, application security, securing the data, and many other as well. But I have written these 5 points, which is basically dealing more than 80-90% of the current scenario. So identification and allowance. In a cloud, there is a risk that the data can access by the unauthorized user, as it can access from anywhere. This is a cloud, right? And there is a need to establish with certainty of identity of a user. Right? A strong authentication and authorization should be a critical concern. People are having their own AD, Active Directory, created on the top of cloud provider, say Azure or anyone. So we have to ensure that the way we are creating this, this all roles and creating users, role-based access controls. So the way we are planning it, the way we are grouping it, this all makes sense, in terms of security, and makes more sense, in fact, I should say. Now, second thing is management of interface vulnerability. right? So the cloud can access from anywhere. So it lets to an increment in the risk. As there is a large number of users who are accessing the cloud, the risk is quite high. How to manage that? So interface which we are used to manage the public cloud resources should be secure as their combination with remote access or web browser vulnerabilities. Right? Next one is security incidents management. So customers should inform with the delay which caused due to any detection, reporting, subsequent management of security incidents. So there should be proper management, I should say, and customer should be familiar with the fact. Means if some patch is running on your system, which is basically active right now, there may be a possibility that I'm owning say 35 machines in North Carolina region, and there one of the machines which is basically up and active and performing some services and giving some services to my customer, some patch is getting started. So the provider's responsibility is to give this information to the customer, so that customer should also be aware that this is the thing on this particular date it will start executing the patches updates. And now next one is security of applications. So applications on the cloud protect with great security solution, which is based on physical and I should say virtual resources. The level of security is high, and the same level of security must provide to workload which deploy in cloud services, right? So there should be a centralized management across distributed workload instances, right? Uh, Last one is securing the data. So data means say, let's say example of personal data. So the personal data of customer should secure as it is one of the important part of any person. Suppose if you are like say Paytm, if you are having a credit card which is saved with Paytm and the CVV you have to enter. So the data of your credit card, it can be misused, right? So how to protect that? So that's what I'm telling the personal data of customer, it should be secure because it's a very important perspective, and the unavailability of the data can cause a major issue for both customer and the provider. There is a lack of trust will be there, right? So this problem can rapidly grow in case of multiple data transfer, which will result in a lack of ownership transparency, which I said, and will lead to a great loss for any organization, right? Let's move to the next one. Understanding the data security. Okay. People, if you see outside world right now, what is the change you are seeing from last 4 5 years? It's not the technology, it's all data, right? So when I'm saying data, so access control is used to identify a subject. Subject means user or human, and to authorize a subject to access an object, say data or resource. So when I'm saying data is transferred via internet, so one of the major concerns is a data security. Right? So anyone can breach, anyone can hack. These kind of things are happening out throughout, throughout this pan globe. So what are the major points we should consider? We should have a proper access control mechanism, proper auditing. When I'm saying auditing means a user when he has entered, there are many sources, many ways you can do, like say application insight. By that, I should, I can track a particular time frame, say between 10 to 10:05, how many users got entered. I want information of this user. Now, this user, what are the activities he has done? So this whole auditing, I can have full access and I should get the access, right? So that I can view what is happening. Next thing is authentication. We should authenticate people, whether they are basically having, access to our system or not. And if they are having access, then we have to authorize them with a proper grouping or proper providing a role, whether they are authorized to do this activity over this particular resource, over this particular service, perform that particular applications, data and those things. So this four, I should say four A's: access control, auditing, authentication, or authorization. It should be proper, right, from our side. So access control is basically, it's a fundamental component of security compliance programs that ensures security technology, access controls policies. They are in place to protect the confidential information, right, such as customer data. If somebody is taking my name and my email ID and providing some password, they should not get the data, because that is my data. Nobody can take that, else the system owner or the super admin, right? So this is all about the data security, which is very important in terms of cloud-based security. So what are the threats? So what are the threats to cloud security? There are many. Some of them only I have listed. Number one is unknown risk profile, abuse or nefarious use of cloud computing, insecure application programming interfaces, insecure APIs, malicious insiders, shared technology vulnerabilities, data loss, leakage, account, service, or traffic hijacking. These are very, very common nowadays. But I'm saying unknown risk profiles. What does it mean? Unknown risk profile means how well the cloud is being maintained. Many companies unwilling to release the details. And is your infrastructure is up to date? Is all the security patches and everything is installing in a proper way? Firmwares are installing, and does a combination of different service provider create previously unseen vulnerabilities or not? So these are the things which are comes under unknown risk profiles. Abuse and nefarious use, anything like password. People are there who can crack the keys you are using for password, or keys which is basically used to encrypt your password and username combination, right? And launching the dynamic attack points, posting malicious data, building rainbow tables. I hope you guys are aware of it. And captcha solving, yeah. And captcha solving means you are having a captcha which anyone can detect, that next time the random captcha will be this one, right? And exploits whatever the exist already in your system. This is what about abuse and nefarious use. Next one is insecure API. I think we all aware of our API could expose to more functionality that intended. And whatever the policy you are using, guys, policy is a fundamental of any security measures across any cloud provider, right? Policy should be, or should not be circumvented. And credentials may need to pass. And while passing the credentials in the interface, we have to provide a safeguard if it is not there, and if it is there, it's very good. Provide a safeguard to the interface which uses these credentials, right? Next one is malicious insiders. So malicious it's a little risk of detection sometimes. System administrator, if he is not well qualified, or uh, not qualified for a particular cloud service provider, so there may be a some negative impacts he or she can give, or which basically directly leads to the data, right? Now, so after that, shared technology issues. Shared technology issues means we have to understand the underlying architecture, CPU cache, whether I'm using say GPU machines for AI and ML, etc. And they are not intended to offer strong isolation properties. Definitely, these incidents will appear. Exploits that exist, blue pill, red pill, like that. Virtualizations, hypervisor used to mediate the access between your guest operating system and the physical resource. That also comes under this shared technology vulnerabilities, because it's not one technology which is basically used on cloud. There are many, right? So we have to understand that perspective also. We have to layer it out, right? Now, data loss and leakage. Everything is data nowadays, guys. So data is outside the owner's control, right? And data can be deleted or decoupled or lost. Encryption keys can be lost. Unauthorized party may gain access, right? And what I can think, caused by insufficient authentication or access control, role-based access control, if that is not properly managed or properly not well formed by the organization admin, authorizations, I should say, and persistence of the data on the client's end, or I'm sorry, not client's end, from the server's end. Poor, disposal procedures. Object should get disposed once after that object is being used, right? And your data center itself is not reliable. Means anyone can get the access to your data package. So this all comes under data loss and leakage. Last one is account service and traffic hijacking. It exploits the phishing attacks, software vulnerabilities, frauds which are happening now. It's very common that you are getting a call from a person who is asking your details and you are giving and your data is gone. Data means money is gone, right? And credential reuse, anyone can, suppose if you have used your credential to any cyber cafe and somebody had used, so that is the reason Microsoft some years back they introduced MFA, multi-factor authentication, so that the way people are using the technology, it should provide an extra safeguard on the top, right? What are the insider threats? So here we'll see how bad these insider threats are. So most common insider threats are, e-crime, right? Uh, Unauthorized access or use of corporate information. According to data, guys, these these are the sectors where people have received the insider threats. Many types are there, which I can tell you. But if you see banking and finance, 29% banking and finance sector has faced threats from inside, means within their infrastructure. Similarly, next one is telecommunication and information here, right? And another, almost all food, government, energy, education, emergency services, defense. 2% in defense, it's a very big deal, right? Manufacturing, transportation, water also 1%. So, you know, if I'm considering cloud computing as a superset, inside that we are putting some effort on cloud computing security. Then, after implementing this all, if there is a threat from the insider, from the within your organization, within your software, some backdoor is open. That is called insider threat. So most common insider threats are e-crimes, unauthorized access, which I'm seeing data around 63%, use of your own corporate information, and virus or other malicious code people are injecting into your client side code. Possible, it's very possible right nowadays. Around 37% people, or you suppose you have filed a patent, right? And I have seen this example very recently that one guy, very genius guy, he filed a patent. Now, just because of that patent which he filed, in India, it's taking 6 to 12 months. You have to go through various steps. Now, uh, that was in pending state, and another guy who has got that idea by injecting those scripts and all. So he has filed from his behalf and he has changed the date. So now the first guy who has already developed, now he doesn't have that intellectual property. Okay? So this incident, if I have to summarize in one word, that is theft of intellectual property. Right? Let's go to next. Guys, just like we are having, World Wide Web Consortium W3C. Similarly, we are having alliance model as well in case of cloud security. So basically, what CSA model is? This stack model defines the boundary of each service model and shows, how much variation the functional units relate to each other. Means if I'm having say 3 functional units, what is the max variation you want to have, across all 3 functional units? And these 3 variations, these 3 functional unit, there is a mid cap, there is a cap, minimum and maximum. And it is responsible for creating the boundary between the service provider and the customer, right? So if service provider is saying that, sir, I am providing these many services with SLA 99.3. So according to CSA model, he has to keep up that system 993 days out of 1000 days in a very simpler format I'm telling you. So some of the key points, what it has is, it's a when the key points I'm saying, it is not all, but 4 or 5 points which I have noted. That is, IaaS is the most basic level among all the services, where end to end basically managed by you, uh, uh, except the machine. You have to install your middlewares, operating system, applications, and all. Second one, each of the services inherits the capability and security concerns of the model beneath. Right? Means if model is secure, then you have to basically capture, or in our terms, you have to inherit the capabilities and security from the model. Infrastructure, platform for development, and the software operating environment are provided by IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS. So if you see people, infrastructure, platform, and the software OS provided by these 3 respectively. Now, the security mechanism, uh, the security boundary must be built into the system so that it is required to be maintained by the customer. So when I'm saying that security boundary, what does it mean? We have to basically locate the max, till how much, what is the bottom. We have to basically, in short, we have to create a depth. That means uh, up to this particular level, I'm secure. But if it is going beyond of that, that boundary we have to define it. And that is not defined by the provider. That is defined by the customer. Now, next topic is, what are the measures and controls we should take for cloud security. Several measures, basically. If you have gone through various risk-based analysis, then the best risk-based analysis is preventive. Stop from the first, right? What does this do? So this type of preventive control, it is strengths to reduce the attack on the cloud system, right? This system reduces the problem, but does not, the bad thing is, it does not actually eliminate the vulnerability. It can provide the safeguard on the first site, but not 100% safe, right? And it also prevents, the main thing is, it also prevents unauthorized access, so that privacy of the cloud is not disturbed. And I think due to this, cloud users are correctly identified. Now, second thing is deterrent. Deterrent means, suppose you are typing a control schedule attack on the cloud system by providing a warning sign, right? So this is a kind of a control is known it as deterrent control. Means something is happening fishy on your cloud. So there is a warning sign. Whether you can implement on the client end or on the provider end, you can implement. And so basically, it typically reduces, the level by informing the authorized person that it's something like, suppose you are using your Gmail, or you leave it, you are using your HDFC net banking portal, right? And you have used your own laptop here. So basically, nowadays what they're doing, they are taking your IP. Wherever you have logged in before, that IP is there, and it's an array, dictionary or array collection. Now you have used your net banking in somewhere else, say in Mysore. So you will be getting a message saying that somebody else has used your credentials from this particular location. So this kind of control, they're calling it as a deterrent control, right? Third one, that is detective control. What does it do? These controls basically detect the incidents which occurs. Detective, right? And if there is an attack, the detective control will inform the user to perform the corrective control and address the issue. It also includes, intrusion detection, people. It also includes the intrusion detection and prevention arrangements, which are used to detect the attack which took place on the cloud system by supporting the communication infrastructure. So it detects and then it will give the prompt response to the provider or not provider, to the customer. Now, the fourth one is corrective control. What does it do? This controls reduces the consequences of an incident by putting a halt on the damage. Means, let's say Flipkart, they are managing Big Billion Day. If any hacker, black hat hacker, they come and they try to, and Flipkart is in on cloud, everybody knows, and they want to shut down one machine which is basically active right now. It's a huge economical loss for Flipkart. Right? So corrective control is, if somebody is trying to do that, they are basically providing a halt on that. Means if I want to switch off the machine, if I want to provide some unrelevant data to that particular machine or to that SaaS provider, then it should provide a halt. 15 minutes, after 15 minutes only something can do, and my detective control, what it says, it will give that information to the customer saying that something is happening fishy on this particular node, right? So that is known as corrective control, and it further restores the backup, rebuilds the system so that Flipkart will not face any issue with respect to customer UX, customer user experience, and it making sure that everything works correctly, right? Uh, all the guys, all the security measures, if everything is correct, and if defensive implementations are properly processed, I should say, then cloud security architecture should recognize the problem, should come up with a solution very quickly, and with the help of these controls, problems associated with the cloud should be diminished very, very quickly. Now, why I'm telling that, these 2-3 statements, because we have to take some precautions. It's not like you are basically using cloud provider, it means that you are safe. No, it's a myth. There are many precautions we have to take while choosing a cloud provider. So some of the measures and controls, the security architecture, I have defined it in this category. So mm, the soul of this particular security precautions is one should be familiar with the data store, so that if a disaster takes place or the provider goes out of the businesses, the data can retrieve from the locations. Right? And there should be the snapshot of the data, means the backup we have to take on regular level, every 1 hour or like that, based on your customer segment, and data should store in different places. The backup of data should protect so that whatever happens, the secure backup can retrieve easily, right? And the cloud provider should be trustworthy, means you should not go for a cloud provider where you're not seeing something can happen to my data. That doubt, if you are having to some cloud provider based on your technology, based on your infrastructure, don't go to them. So cloud provider should be trustworthy. Then they should make sure that data center seriously secure, and managed services can provide great benefit and expertise data, and business resilient also. Moreover, I should say service like firewall, antivirus can also be offered by cloud provider if you want, and they can offer a more security to your service. And the last thing, security validation. When I'm saying we have to basically not provide, we have to perform the proper testing should be done to make sure that everything on my system against my product is secure. Company can also hire many companies like PNB and many banking applications. They're hiring ethical hackers like me to test the security provisions, and there should be a proper vulnerability scanning assessment mix. So what we are doing, we have to basically check all the interfaces from customer's point of view, right? So we have to check proper vulnerability scanning assessments we have to do to make sure there should not be any backdoor available for any unauthorized access. So that's all for my side, guys. Satyakshi, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ishad, for your valuable insights on cloud security. I'm sure it was certainly a very beneficial session for all of you. If you guys are interested in learning more about cloud or any other technologies, do check out our batches of VILT trainings on our website, springpeople.com. These VILT trainings are leveraged online from the comfort of your home and flexible as per your schedule and location. If you do not find any suitable batches, we would be happy to discuss and schedule a private batch for you. If you guys don't have any time for join online, then we do have our self-paced courses. You can try them out. That too you can see on springpeople.com. For more information, do write to us at training@springpeople.com or call on our number displayed on the current slide. So now we will open the forum for Rishad to answer questions that we have received during the PPT. Over to you, Rishad.
So one of the major question what I'm seeing that which is around the role, how we are performing the role, right? So when I'm saying guys role, there is a exact terminology I should say that is called RBAC. So that is role based access control. So it's a system that provides a fine grained access management for Azure or any particular resource. Using RBAC, you can segregate the duties within your team. Like you can have, owner. Basically, three roles we have for accessing the resource, like say owner, contributor, and leader. Owner has, guys, full access to all the resources, including the right to delegate the access to others. So owner is a person who can add another owner, who can add another contributor, or who can add another reader. Right? Contributor can create and manage all types of resources, but contributor cannot get or cannot grant the access to others or for others. Right? Reader, reader means its name only says, they are having a read-only property. They can only view the resources. Another question around the key vault. So guys, key vault basically provided by Azure. Mostly people are using it. So it's a cloud service that provides a secure store or secrets, and you can securely store keys, passwords, certificates, and other secret keys, whatever you want. And key vaults, guys, may be created or managed through Azure portal. And yes, it is safe, and it provides a safeguard encryption keys, secrets like connection strings and password also it can store. And because this data is very sensitive and business critical, guys, so you need to secure access to your key vaults by allowing only the authorized applications and users. And next one, related to Azure certification. So yes, we have Azure certification. We are having AZ 500. It's a part of Microsoft new role based certification program. It has a lot of things to cover, but I think it has 6 or 7 modules: securing your cloud application in Azure, implement the resource management security, implement the network security, which we have discussed in very high level in this session, and virtual machine host security, how we can provide the safeguard, as we discussed in our last session, that how we can provide the safeguard to our VMs or to our nodes against a particular reason, right? And manage the identity. Identity and access means where I'm adding a particular user, and that user is authorized enough to access to my system, and I'm giving active directories and role-based access system I have already ensured. And the last one is manage security operations in Azure. So this all comes under one umbrella, that is AZ500, which basically any candidates who pass the AZ500 exam uh, will earn the Microsoft certification for 2 years, and call it as Azure Security Engineer Associate certification. So, guys, that's all from my side. Uh, Thank you so much for joining this session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here. We shall be sending out the webinar recording to all you participants by tomorrow end of the day. I request you to kindly provide feedback before signing off, which will help us improve the quality of our future events. Thanks again for joining us today. Signing off on behalf of Team Spring People. Hope to see you again for our next expert webinar. Bye-bye.